Hey, and welcome to St. Patty's Day Stories. So let's get started with some Berenstain Bears. If you have this book, go ahead and find it so you can read along with us in your very own copy. Here we go. The Berenstain Bears St. Patrick's Day by Mike Berenstain. 'Tis the luck of the bearish, or so we are told, that leads us on to a pot of gold. By Mike Berenstain, based on the characters created by Stan and Jan Berenstain and published by Harper Festival Books. It was in between time in Bear Country, the time between the end of winter and the beginning of spring. The weather couldn't decide whether to be cold and snowy or warm and sunny. Sometimes it was both warm and snowy, with spring flowers poking through patches of snow. The holidays were in between as well. Valentine's Day was long gone, and Easter had yet to arrive. About this time, March 17th to be exact, Grizzly Gramps and Gran came by the Bear family's treehouse. "Happy St. Patrick's Day!" called Gramps. Brother, sister, and Honey were surprised to see Gramps and Gran, all in green with bright green top hats. "Why are you dressed like that?" asked Sister. "For St. Patrick's Day, of course," said Gran. "What's St. Patrick's Day?" asked Brother. Gramps was shocked. "Don't you cubs know you're part of Bearish?" he asked. "We know we're bears," said Sister, puzzled. "That's not what I mean," laughed Gramps as he explained. "To be bearish," said Gramps, "means that some of our ancestors came from the island of Bearland, across the sea. Bearland is a fair green country called the Emerald Isle. That's why we wear green on St. Patrick's Day." "Who is St. Patrick?" asked Brother. "St. Patrick was important in bearish history," said Gramps. "He brought goodness and faith to Bearland. There's a story that he drove all the snakes from the country. Snakes were thought to be evil, and there's no snakes there to this day." "Oh," said Sister, disappointed. She liked snakes. "Come along now," said Gran. "We're going to the St. Patrick's Day parade. Everyone in Bear Country who even feels bearish will be there. We've brought along green outfits for everyone." They were soon dressed all in green, a different look for them. Gramps gave them green clover leaves to wear. "What are these?" asked Sister. "Shamrocks," said Gramps. "They're a symbol of Bearland and are said to bring good luck. The luck o' the bearish." "Nice," said Brother, who didn't mind a little good luck. As they headed for the parade route, the cubs wondered about St. Patrick's Day. "Gramps," said Brother, "can you tell us more about Bearland?" "Of course," said Gramps. "We'll start with the legend of the leprechaun." "Lepra who?" asked Sister. "Leprechaun," repeated Gramps. "What's that?" asked Brother. "It sounds weird." "Oh, and so it is," agreed Gramps. "Leprechauns," Gramps explained as they walked, "are magical beings like elves or fairies who live in the woods and vales of Bearland. They are short of stature and given to mischief. They devote themselves to making shoes." "Why do they do that?" asked Sister. "To pass the time," said Gramps, and went on. They use their magic to find buried gold and hide it in iron pots. It's said there's a leprechaun's pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, if you can find it." "Wow," said the cubs, impressed. The family reached the parade route down Main Street in Beartown. Papa set up folding chairs, and they settled down to wait for the parade to start. It was one of those warm and sunny in-between days. The cubs relaxed in their chairs, thinking about leprechauns. They began to doze off, and as they dozed, to dream. Sleepily, the cubs opened their eyes. To their surprise, it seemed they were in a green and pleasant land. It looked like an emerald isle. They were all alone. It was peaceful and serene. Puffy white clouds billowed over the green hills, and a beautiful rainbow appeared. It arched, shimmering, down to the hills and beyond. Without thinking, the cubs followed the rainbow. Soon the cubs heard the sound. A tap, tap, tapping. Like a little hammer, busily at work. Curiously, they followed it to where the rainbow ended, in a little ring of boulders. There the cubs beheld a little figure, dressed all in green, tap, tap, tapping at a shoe. He turned and saw them. "Begorra," he said, smiling. "Welcome, young'uns. Who might ye be?" "We're brother, sister, and honey," said sister. "We're bears." "Are ye now?" he laughed. "Tell us, sir," said brother, "are you a real leprechaun?" "Well now," he said with a wink, "what do you think I am? And what brought you here, my darlings? Did you follow the rainbow?" "Yes, we did," admitted brother. "And I suppose you're expecting to find a pot of gold," said the leprechaun with a chuckle. "I guess so," said sister shyly. "Ah, sure, and you were right," said the leprechaun, stepping aside and revealing a pot of glistening gold in the rainbow. "Help yourselves." Scarcely able to believe their luck, the cubs dug into the gold and filled their pockets. "Wake up! Wake up!" someone was saying. It was Grizzly Gran. "You're missing the parade." The cubs sat up, rubbing their eyes. The pot of gold and the leprechaun in the Emerald Isle disappeared. They were sitting in their folding chairs on Main Street in Beartown. But somehow, something seemed different. The St. Patrick's Day parade was indeed getting started. It was a sight to behold. There were marching bands and bearish dancers. There were pipers piping, and harpers harping. Mayor and Mrs. Honeypot drove by in their long lavender limousine. The whole Beartown police and fire departments came marching along. The parade wound up with a troop of bears dressed as leprechauns, each carrying a pot of gold. As the bear family packed up their things and started for home, the cubs thought back to their vision of the Emerald Isle and the leprechaun's pot of gold. Had it really been just a dream? Then Honey thought she caught a glimpse of something. A little figure dressed in green, hopping behind a boulder. And she thought she heard a soft chuckle. Could it be? Begorra, who can tell? The end. What a fun story. I love that one. It tells us a lot about St. Patrick's Day and some of the things that can happen that day and all the magic. So why don't we read one more story about St. Patrick's Day? This one you probably don't have, but if you do, find it and read along. Here we go. Jamie O'Rourke and the Big Potato, an Irish Folktale by Tommie dePaola. Jamie O'Rourke, an Irish Folktale retold and illustrated by Tommie dePaola, published by Penguin Books for Young Readers. Goodness, somehow we made it all the way to the end. Just a moment. Let's go to the beginning. Jamie O'Rourke was the laziest man in all of Ireland. He would do anything to avoid working, especially if it had to do with growing potatoes. Jamie O'Rourke, his wife Elaine would say, we'll have nothing to eat this winter if you don't go out and dig up the praties. Oh, saints preserve us, Jamie would whine. Me back's as sore as can be. Oh, sure as I'm telling you, wife, you'll have to dig 'em up yourself. I'll break in two if I so much as get out of this bed. So Elaine, who had done all the planting and watering and weeding anyhow, would go out to the tiny garden and dig up the smallest potatoes in Ireland, all because Jamie was too lazy to dig a larger garden and had no money to buy good potato seeds. Then poor Elaine wrenched her back and was laid up in bed. St. Bridget and the Virgin Mary herself must have smiled on Elaine O'Rourke, the village woman said. Why, it's her first rest she's had since she married Jamie O'Rourke. With Elaine in bed, Jamie began to worry. No Elaine to dig meant no praties all winter, and no praties meant no food. Oh, poor me, wailed Jamie. I'll starve to death. I'd best go to church and confess to Father O'Malley. There's no telling how soon old Death will be knocking on me door. So, even though it was midnight, Jamie set out for the church. He was about halfway down the hill when he heard singing and tapping. Tapping. A tap, tap, tapping sound. Sure, I wouldn't be knowing, Jamie whispered. But I swear it's a leprechaun. And sure enough, sitting in a circle of ferns in the moonlight was a leprechaun, singing and hammering tiny nails into the heels of the fairy boots he was making. Jamie knew just what to do. He crept up on the little man and caught him by his coattails and held him firm. Let me go! Let me go! The leprechaun shouted. Not on your life, Jamie said. "Not till you show me where you kept your part of gold." Now everyone in Ireland knows that leprechauns make boots and dancing shoes for the fairies, who pay for them with gold. And everyone knows that if you catch a leprechaun, he'll pay for his freedom with his pot of gold. But this leprechaun was cleverer than most. "Oh, please, Mr. Mortalman," he pleaded. "I'm just starting out making me fairy shoes, and I only have 1 or 2 pieces of gold in my poor pot. Won't you make a wish instead?" "Why, what would I wish for?" Jamie asked. "Me who's about to die of starvation because me wife is sick in bed and can't dig the praties for the winter. And they're such puny praties anyway." "Well," said the leprechaun, reaching into his pocket, "you could wish for the biggest pratie in the world. It would last all winter, and you wouldn't have to do anything more than plant the seed, water it, and wait." That sounded wonderful to Jamie. "Done!" he shouted, and as the leprechaun dropped the seed into Jamie's hand, Jamie let him go. And off he went. That leprechaun scampered away. When Elaine heard what he had done, she was furious. "Oh, Jamie, you rock! You're not only the laziest man in Ireland, but a fool as well, giving up a pot of gold for a pratie seed." "Well, I'm gonna plant the seed and water it, and you'll see," Jamie said, and out he went. And faith, Ellen did see. In no time at all, the biggest, finest potato plant had sprouted out of the ground, followed by the potato itself. It was so big, it pushed up not only all the dirt in the garden, but the garden shed and the corner of the cottage as well. "Well, surely now it's ready to dig," Jamie said proudly. He hoed all around it, but he couldn't dig that pratie out of the ground. He got a beam and a big rock and tried to pry it out. He pushed and he pushed, but it wouldn't budge. And as he was pondering what to do, his neighbors passed by on the way to the village. He couldn't believe his eyes, and couldn't wait to tell everyone in the village what he had seen. And before you knew it, the hill up to Jamie's was filled with villagers coming to see the big potato. "Where did it come from?" they asked. Jamie told them about the lucky night he had caught the leprechaun and how smart he had been. "Why, anyone could have gotten a pot of gold," he bragged. "But the biggest pratie in the world? Well, that took some doing." "However did you outsmart the leprechaun?" they asked at once. Jamie hesitated and scratched his head. "We'll help you dig up your pratie, Jamie, if you tell us how you did it." And they grabbed shovels and hoes and started to dig. They dug and they dug, and they pushed and they shoved until the potato flew up out of its hole. It rolled down the hill faster and faster until it reached the bottom, where it bounced up high and came to a stop, wedged between the stone walls on either side of the road. What to do now? "That pratie is so big that no one, no cart, nothing can get by it," the constable complained to Father O'Malley. "How's a body to get in or out of the village?" "What shall we do?" the villagers wailed. Then they all looked at Jamie and said, "It's your pratie. You'll have to move it out of the way." "Well," Eileen spoke up, "there's more than enough pratie for everyone. Why don't you all take some?" So the villagers sawed and chopped and carted off huge pieces of potato, while Jamie sat on the stone wall and watched. All winter long, everyone had potato to eat, and eat, and eat, until no one wanted to see or hear of potato again. In the spring, Jamie said, "I saved a potato eye for a seed, and it's just about time to plant it." "Oh no," the villagers all cried. "If you promise not to plant it, Jamie, we'll promise before St. Patrick and all the saints to see that you and Eileen always have plenty to cook and eat. We don't want another giant party round here." Jamie smiled and agreed. What a perfect life for a lazy man. "And so you see, darling Eileen," Jamie told her, "I wasn't such a fool with that leprechaun after all." And Eileen had to admit that Jamie O'Rourke was right. The end. I hope you enjoyed that story as well. I've always liked it. And I hope that you look for all the magic around you today and every day, and find the wonderful things that await when you have magic in your eyes and love in your heart, and share that with everyone around you. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Love you guys. Bye.